Well, of course, El País is the representation of the Spanish ruling class, so we know what their perspective is, and they're encouraging divisions within the Latin American left. I read their reporting on the summit, and they have been really pushing this talking point very hard, although as someone who lives in the region, this is exaggerated. There are differences among the left, but the differences are much bigger between the left and the right. The difference is that right now in Latin America, the vast majority of the governments do have left-wing presidents. But I think what this also reflects is I looked very carefully at the Spanish language reporting of this summit, and the vast majority was in Spain's newspapers, not in the region's newspapers in Latin America. And it reflects the fact that this summit is largely a formality, and it's really pushed by the European powers, mostly Spain, to a lesser extent Portugal, which is the whole concept of Ibero-America is something that the Spanish right wing, including the far right, like the neo-Francoist parties like Vox, have been talking a lot about. In Latin America and the Caribbean, the discussion is much more about regional integration. And Lara mentioned something important, which is the CELAC, the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. And that summit that was recently held in Argentina that brought together Lula and other leaders in the region was significantly more important. That represents the future of the region, not this summit. That explains why there were so many absences from leaders across the region, because clearly they don't see this summit as something that's a top priority for them.
Yes, that's right. And this is becoming very clear in this Lula government. He really wants to reestablish the sort of regional integration that was like a mark in his first 2 terms. He's putting a lot of emphasis on Mercosur, but also, like mentioned, on CELAC. That was actually, it was so important for Lula that he actually preferred that meeting instead of talking to other countries at that moment. So the emphasis on regional integration is a key aspect of this Brazil administration. I still think that there's a lot to be achieved in terms of not only regional integration, but also in terms of reestablishing the discussions and contacts between Brazil, especially Brazil and Mexico, the 2 largest economies. But you can clearly see that this is the trend that Brazil, as a regional leader, as an economic power in the region, is trying to galvanize, starting with this new government.